The Toronto Blue Jays have been waiting for Addison Barger to return for weeks. And in his very first game back, he reminded everyone exactly why this team missed him so much. Not only did Barger help spark the Blue Jays in a dominant win, but he also delivered one of the most unbelievable defensive plays of the entire MLB season. For a team searching desperately for momentum, confidence, and offensive consistency, his return could not have come at a better time. The Blue Jays entered the game needing energy. The offense had been inconsistent for much of the season, and injuries had already forced Toronto to constantly shuffle the lineup. Even though the team remained competitive, it was obvious they were missing another dangerous bat capable of changing games. That's why Barger's return carried so much importance. Before suffering sprains in both ankles earlier this season, the Blue Jays viewed him as one of the key young pieces in their lineup moving forward. Even after a slow start to 2026, the organization never lost confidence in him because they already saw what he was capable of during his breakout 2025 season. Last year, Barger hit 21 home runs with 74 RBIs and became one of Toronto's most dangerous power threats. Then in the postseason, he elevated his game even further, batting .367 while delivering huge moments throughout the Blue Jays playoff run. Most fans still remember his historic pinch-hit grand slam during Game 1 of the World Series, the first pinch-hit grand slam in World Series history. That's the type of upside Barger brings to this lineup. So naturally, there were questions entering his first game back from injury. Would he look healthy? Would the timing still be there offensively? Would he need time to settle back into the lineup? Instead, Barger immediately looked comfortable. The confidence stood out right away. He wasn't passive at the plate. He didn't look hesitant physically. Everything about his approach looked calm, balanced, and under control. And even though his offensive numbers didn't fully explode in his return, his impact on the game was impossible to ignore. Because in the second inning, Barger produced a moment that completely changed the energy inside Rogers Center. With the game still scoreless, Angels hitter Vaughn Grissom lifted a fly ball in a right field that looked deep enough to easily score Jorge Soler from third base. Most outfielders simply make the catch and accept the sacrifice fly. Barger did something completely different. He fired an absolute missile home plate. The throw was clocked at 101.2 miles per hour, officially the hardest tracked outfield assist in Major League Baseball this season. Not just the hardest throw by a Blue Jays outfielder, the hardest throw in MLB this year. And the timing of it made the moment even bigger. Instead of the Angels taking an early lead, Barger threw out Jorge Soler at the plate to end the inning in stunning fashion. The stadium exploded, the dugout erupted, and suddenly, the entire momentum of the game shifted toward Toronto. That's the kind of play that energizes an entire team. It also perfectly showed why Barger is becoming such an important player for the Blue Jays. Because his value goes beyond just hitting home runs. He brings athleticism, arm strength, versatility, intensity, and when he plays with confidence, he changes the feeling around the entire lineup. The Blue Jays eventually rolled to a massive 14-1 victory over the Angels, and while several players contributed offensively, Barger's return became one of the biggest stories of the game. Even more encouraging for Toronto was how healthy he looked. That matters. Players returning from ankle injuries often look tentative defensively or uncomfortable moving laterally in the outfield. Barger showed none of that hesitation. If anything, he looked explosive. His throw home plate instantly became one of the most talked about highlights in baseball. And honestly, it may end up being one of the defining Blue Jays defensive plays of the season. The Blue Jays also immediately trusted him in an important role within the lineup. Toronto inserted Barger directly into the number 2 spot in the batting order against the Angels, placing him right in front of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. That says a lot about how the organization views him. Managers don't place players returning from injury near the top of the lineup unless they believe they can immediately impact games. The Blue Jays clearly believe Barger can become a major offensive weapon moving forward. And if he plays the way he did in this return game, it's easy to understand why. The Blue Jays have spent much of the season searching for consistency offensively. Some nights the lineup looks dangerous, while other nights it struggles to produce timely hits. Too often, Toronto has relied heavily on a small group of veterans carrying the offense. Barger gives the lineup another dimension. Pitchers have to respect his power. Defenses have to respect his arm. And opposing teams suddenly have another player capable of changing momentum instantly. That's huge for a team trying to compete in the American League playoff race. Of course, one game alone does not solve every issue facing the Blue Jays. The offense still needs more consistency overall. The team still faces pressure to compete in a loaded division. And Barger himself still needs to prove he can stay healthy over a long stretch of games. But this return felt important, not just because the Blue Jays won, because Barger looked like himself again. The confidence was there, the energy was there, and the impact was there immediately. Toronto needed a spark. Addison Barger delivered one in his very first game back.